do 3 of these every day, one on each of the teams that I cover here in our city. What I almost never do is overlap or cross-sport, as I refer to it myself. Today, I'm going to break the rule a little bit. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning from Milwaukee. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates. And if you want to hear what I think about Paul Skenes and the extraordinary event that I covered here in Milwaukee yesterday, you are hereby cordially invited to check out Daily Shot of Pirates and or read my column on DK Pittsburgh Sports. But it did get me thinking about hockey, believe it or not. Because in the process of writing this rather lengthy piece that I ended up producing in that press box, I cited some comparisons for what Skenes has done to date through his first 11 starts in the majors. Absolutely dominant. Even if you don't follow baseball or don't care about baseball, stick with me on this. Because the bar is set really, really high in our city. I would argue that it's unattainable regarding one specific individual, and I will hold that position, I'm betting, forever. But while I'll never mention number 66's name in any sort of comparison to anyone, I'm quite comfortable in comparing Skenes to a young Sidney Crosby. There's so much that's similar about them, actually, including their personalities, how they carry themselves away from competition, how they handle the media, how important winning is to them, the natural leadership traits that Sid has shown really throughout his life, not just his NHL career, but that Skenes has shown in his life before coming to baseball and still can't really show all the way yet because, you know, he's a rookie in that clubhouse. And then that in turn got me thinking about just how fortunate the Pittsburgh Baseball Club is to have someone like this, how much they can and should do to try, and that's usually the operative term with this particular operation, try to put together a championship-level supporting cast, because that happened in Pittsburgh when Sid came along, and it happened right away. Not the championship, but the trying part. Everything changed the day that ping pong ball went their way. Everything. And the management, to their credit, knew it at the time and began immediately going around and finding every Gary Roberts they could find. And Bill Guerin and George LaRocque, and you remember that time if you're old enough. It was almost like a panic to just find as many good players as possible and get moving, be better than everybody else in the East, find a way to get past the Senators, and then when you get to the final, take 2 cracks at them, but eventually take down the Red Wings. That has to happen with the baseball operation, and it hasn't come close to happening yet. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So, continuing the random train of thought, but still related, I can't get past this idea that when Sid's no longer around, that those who follow the Penguins, even those who follow them the most passionately, whether young or old, but especially the older ones, are going to be able to put full faith into a franchise that doesn't have that superstar. I do not overuse the word superstar, but the Penguins have had one or more of those. If you really think back, and again, I'm calling on the older fans here, since 1984. 40 years of almost uninterrupted superstar presence in the lineup. They weren't always at their peak. these individual superstars, of course, but a lot of those years were with those people at their peak. And I wonder and occasionally worry what it'll be like around here when, let's say, I don't know, just to pick a name out because we've been talking about development camp this week, Braden Yeager turns himself into a really nice player. You know, let's say that he's like a Jake Gensel level scorer. Believe me, that's not an insult in any way, shape, or form. Jake's a 40-goal guy, had been a 40-goal guy. He's 30 in the bank. And that's really good stuff in any era of the NHL. Let's say Yeager does that. Let's say a couple other guys come along and the Penguins start to look a little more like what we've seen of the Hurricanes in recent years, where it's not one or two mega names, but it's a bunch of Teuvo Teravainen, Andrei Svechnikov types that just fill the roster, and it's got a lot of depth. You know, I'm not so sure that the Panthers are that different. I'm sure there are a lot of people that would consider Alexander Barkov to be a superstar because, again, the term gets overused. I don't put him at that level based on how I use that word. But the Panthers were able to build up a lot of depth. The Panthers had a lot of good players and a lot of different lines and pairings. Well, that's just never how anybody's won with the Penguins. Even in those rare seasons, like, for example, 2017, where the supporting cast played an outsized role, you know, Chris Letang being hurt, Justin Schultz stepping up at number one, the HBK line stealing a lot of the headlines over the course of that playoff. It's still a team that's built on and around a living legend. We've never known anything but. The notion that Pittsburgh is going to have a third wave of this someday is so far beyond any realm of belief that it really shouldn't even be considered by anyone. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get Mario Lemieux and then get Jaromir Jagr and then get Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and everybody else, not to mention all the others along the path. You're not going to have the draft and the draft lottery and everything else line up like that. So a lot of what has to happen here in Pittsburgh, probably leading into the time that Sid's done, is that there needs to be this understanding that, listen, what's coming after this isn't, you know, it's not going to be a catastrophe. As I was saying yesterday, it doesn't have to be Generation X all over again. You can have a really good hockey team, a really good one. But yeah, seeing the Pirates out of all three of our teams be the one that's got this epic special talent right now, it's a reminder of how blessed this city's hockey fans have been for a long time. When we come back, J1Q. J1Q comes from Raymond. It's in reference to development camp that ended in the middle of this week. He asks, DK, do you think if the Penguins added some younger, speedier legs into Mike Sullivan's system that it would be a recipe for success? There's a lot of different ways to look at that, Raymond, and I would first and foremost stress that where Sullivan himself stresses speed is on the forecheck. So, for example, he's not worried if his centers are fast or not. Now, obviously, everyone would take fast over slow, but if his centers come in late, if they're the supporting element on a forecheck, if they're the first ones back defensively sometimes, that's all the same to him. Where he draws the line is with the wingers. The wingers have to be able to get in and get on the puck and then make something happen with the puck. And that offers me the 5 zillionth time to point out why I hated Kyle Dubas's summer of 2023, because he went and brought in a bunch of 30-year-olds. And he was looking for, I guess, a modicum of skill, some offense, depth in that regard. But what he ended up with was, Riley Smith. And Smith might look good in a different setting. He might look good as a top 6 guy somewhere else. But that wasn't going to work here, even if Smith really, really cared. And I'll never be convinced that he did. What I said then and what I'll repeat now is that what Dubas should have done is found guys who were going to be one or the other. They were either going to score a lot or they were going to energize a lot. These guys did neither. And it was the singular fatal flaw to that team missing the playoffs. So do I feel that you could add a bunch of these types into Sullivan's system, and if he has them in the right spots that they can make a difference? Yeah. Do I think it's a, recipe for whatever? I don't know. Because there's a lot more that goes into it. There's line chemistry, there's balance, there's understanding roles, assigning roles, seeing which roles don't work so that you can change the roles or change the personnel to fit the roles. But crafting the depth chart the way Dubas has this summer, you're going to see a lot more. First off, competition in training camp. The younger players who were here aren't going to be handed spots, which I also like, even as much as I like, for example, Valtteri Puustinen. I want to see him get pushed. I want to see Sam Poulin get pushed. And if someone like, just to throw out another name here, Jonathan Gruden were to make the team as a grinder, penalty killer, physical type, I want him to earn it. I want all of these guys to earn it. I don't ever want to see what we all saw this past NHL season, where the bottom 6 are just out there basically killing time off the clock. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we're going to do another one of these on Monday.